Happy Friday, legends. Welcome to another Jeff Ed on the Jeff members page. We are checking in, collecting some mindset dots today, and we are talking all things calories. So some myths and misconceptions about calories, what a calorie is, all about energy balance, and how that's related to any of the goals that you've got. Be it weight loss, weight maintenance, weight gain, and a few things on the side. So that's what we're going to be chatting through for the next half an hour. So I hope you've boiled the kettle, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and come and check in. Swipe in, collect your dots, let me know that you're here, and let's chat all things calories for the next little while. Some of it's going to be a little bit geeky. I'm a geek by nature, so I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, but it's something that we do risk getting quite complex into. But I'm going to introduce some of the concepts about it, what it's all about, and give you a little bit of background, and then talk about what this all means in the sort of the bigger picture of things. So I'm just loading up the video. I think with ESCOM's issues, everything's just happening a little bit slower today. Cool. Who is all here with us? Say hello. Haley is here and listening. Fantastic. Tomorrow, how's it going? Hope you have a brilliant weekend as well. Mel, happy Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. Hopefully it's not too much information for your Friday afternoon. Just gives you a little food for thought for the weekend. It's the clever name that we've got for this. Rachel came up with that, which was brilliant. Coach Bronwyn, good afternoon. Jolene, hello. Merle, this is a great topic. Megan James is here. Love seeing all the familiar names. Candice, hello. Robin Shirley, very interested in this topic. Great, guys. As we go along, feel free to send any of your questions in, the things that I'm chatting about, or how this relates to burning questions you've got in your mind. Obviously, a lot of what we do often has calories at the heart of it, both what we're eating and when we're training. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why. Janine, hello. Hope you're doing well. Lydia, good afternoon. Slightly nervous about this one. Feeling guilty about my poor diet. That is not what this is about at all. It's about a little bit of education. So if we can have you thinking about things, a bit more aware about them, the fact that you're worried about it's a good thing, but let's try to put a positive spin on it and see how we can improve what you're doing. Marilyn, hello. Kirsty Dyer from Dubai, fantastic. We've got, who else is from out of South Africa? Let me know where you guys are from. Anyone here for their first Jeff Ed today? Let me know as well. Jessica's swiping in for the session. Nivi, hello. How's it going? Cindy, always love it. Yes, Cindy, Megan, Michelle, you guys are rock solid legends. I would miss you guys if I didn't see your name pop up. Jenny Taylor's here. Renelle, hello. Kim Ketley, another one. Shamima, can't wait for the useful information. So I hope it is all useful. Jolene, hello. Catherine loves the Ed sessions, which is fantastic. And Jono putting at the heart of everything we do, nutrition, exercise, and mindset. If we didn't cover them all, we would be missing something. So we've got the 3 pillars to success. So I'm glad you guys are enjoying them and making the most of it. How are your dots going for September challenge? This obviously doesn't count for the challenge. The exercise does, but nothing wrong with collecting some extra dots along the way. Alison, hello. Colleen, good afternoon. Sonia can have a chocolate bar while I'm listening to watching. You know what you want. I'm having a little coffee. Hope you guys have something brewed. Michael, another regular, how's it going? Jay, hello. Ava, it was nice to meet you on Wednesday night. My favorite Cape Town granny. Thanks for letting me into your kitchen. Katie, hello. Needing an update. I very much doubt that. I am in the presence of a very great mission mind there, Katie Pereira. So Thanks for checking in. You might fact check me along the way, so if I get anything wrong, just let it slide. Linda, hello and happy Friday. First Jeff Ed for Amy. Cool. Glasgow, Angela, nice. So we do have a few more out-of-towners. Abu Dhabi, Hanali, nice. Lara's interested in this one. All about the calorie burn. I'm going to talk about that. What it all means when you're looking at your watch and at the end of a session. Colleen's having issues playing the video. Is anyone else? Please let me know. Mine's all fine. It looks okay. Ankia, hello. Loads of comments. Awesome, guys. Swipe in, check in, say hi. And any questions, start sending them through. So let's get into it. We're talking all things calories today. So some interesting things, hopefully. I'm going to let you know what a calorie is, what energy balance is all about, energy in, energy out, and how we kind of use it and why we use it, and some of the risks and myths and misconceptions about it. Okay, so firstly, I want to let you know what a calorie is. Quite simply, it's just a unit of measure for energy. So unit of energy, technically, it's the amount of energy that you need to increase 1 kg of water by 1 degree Celsius. So that's the fanciness behind it. It is just a way that we could measure energy, which itself is the capacity to do work. So that's what energy is. All it is, it's that capacity, that potential for work to be done. So in terms of what that means for your body, is your body needs energy to be able to move, for your systems to operate, for daily functions, for exercise, and for everything. Every cellular action needs energy at the core of that. So your body needs it either immediately from what you've consumed and is ready to be deployed in the body, or what you have stored, and you store energy in a number of different ways, one of them being fat, another glycogen as carbohydrate. And your body can also break down protein and other sources of carbohydrates to release that energy. And it's that release of energy from those stores that your body can then go put to action wherever it's needed. Energy being capacity to store means that it is capacity to work is stored. When we've got a surplus of energy, we store more and more and more of it, and the body will lay that down as fat. About 70% of the calorie excess from what we eat will be stored as fat, depending on our training, and the rest of it will also go to building a little bit of muscle and bone and other places as well. So calories, simply a unit of energy, energy being the capacity to do work. Okay, quite simple. What I want to talk about is what that means in a daily sort of environment. So energy balance is calories in versus calories out. So how much energy are we consuming from our food, and how much energy are we burning in any day for all of the different activities that our body needs to get through. All right, so daily energy expenditure is how much energy, how many calories we burn every day, and everyone's is very, very different. There are 4 things that make up how much energy your body burns every day. Okay, for most of us, the biggest one, about 60 or 70% of that, is going to be your resting metabolic rate. So your basic metabolism, what your body needs to do, what I'm doing right now, sitting around, taking it easy. So for all of your organs to function, for your brain to function, for all the repair processes that are going on, and the building processes and the production of hormones and messages and all sorts of things that's happening in your body to kind of stay alive, that makes up the most of your energy needs. Okay. The next component is what we call non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So essentially the producing of energy for non-exercise movement. So like what I'm doing here, just fidgeting around, moving my coffee mug around, or little basic things, little movements that aren't really structured exercise. Those are all going to contribute to your daily steps. Those contribute to non-exercise expenditure. Then you've got exercise expenditure, which is what you're tracking on your fitness watch. When you're doing John O series class and time and off, you get that calorie number at the end. That's the amount of energy that your body's used to get through that exercise session. And for all of us, that varies quite a bit, and I'll talk through why they all vary. And the last component is what we call the thermic effect of food, which is the amount of calories the body actually burns to digest, metabolize, and store the food that we eat. And that also varies based on our diet. So those are the 4 components that determine how much energy you burn every day. Right? Your resting energy expenditure, what you need to just move, basically, what you need to move in structured exercise, and then what you need to digest your food. Okay. On the other end of the equation is your energy intake. So quite simply, that's your food. So we get our calories from our food and drink, and that's the purpose of it. Now, energy balance, when we're looking to lose weight, we want to create a deficit. So we want to burn and expend more energy than we are taking in from our food. In that way, the body will then go look for stores, which we've got stored as muscle or fat or bone or anything like that. And it'll break that down to release the energy. What we do with our structured one-on-one programs is try to get that deficit in the right place. If you're burning a hell of a lot of calories, but you're not eating much, you've got a very big deficit, there are a lot of risks associated with that. So I mentioned the body's going to go look for energy to break down, and it'll do that from fat. That's the biggest store of extra energy in the body. But if there's a very big calorie deficit, the body will also break down some muscle and some bone as well. So the bigger the calorie deficit that you create, the more the risks that go on. So we look for a nice moderate one that's sustainable, gets fat loss, but maintains muscle mass, and keeping that at about 400 or 500 calories a day is sort of where we're looking at it. You'll notice I'm using the term calories, so I just wanted to comment on that quickly. Calories is the term for the unit of energy, but quite often you'll also see it as kilojoules, particularly when we're referring to food. And calories to kilojoules is simply a ratio of 4.2. So 1 calorie is 4.2 kilojoules. If you're reading food labels, that's kind of what that is there. Okay, so nothing different between them. They both measure energy. If you're in the US, it's normally calories. South Africa, it's kilojoules. I just like smaller numbers, which is why I use calories more than kilojoules. It's quite easy to wrap my head around. So that's the basis of it. Energy balance is calories in versus calories out. Okay, it is at the heart of it as simple as that. But when we start to break it down, there are lots of complex systems that all contribute to these different things. So I want to talk through each of them a little bit more detail, and just quickly see if there are any comments coming in from questions I've just chatted through. All right, cool. So I want to break down each of the components, and I'm going to start first with calories in. All right, so calories in, the food and drink that we are consuming is where we get our energy from, and the body's either going to use it immediately for what it needs, or it's going to store it for later. Okay, but there's a lot of nuance to this, and one of the issues with calorie tracking is that it's not the most accurate tool, for a few reasons. Right, measuring food is very difficult, and if I had 2 bananas that looked exactly the same, they weighed exactly the same, the chances are their actual calorie numbers are going to be quite different. Their ripeness will affect it, where they've been grown, and the soil that they've been in, and the actual food itself, even though it looks the same, weighs the same, might have a different calorie number once you get down to it. But our reference tables and values of them are just averages that we've kind of worked with over time. If I had 2 bananas that had exactly the same amount of calories, and you ate one and I ate one, the chances are we'd also extract very different calorie numbers from it. For a few different reasons. Our gut function is very different. The bacteria in our guts is different. The cost of digesting and absorbing that is different between you and I. So yes, we can track that, but we can't really rely on the end number because firstly, those bananas might have been different. If they were exactly the same, we might have absorbed a different amount of calories from them. So we've always got to be aware of some of the downside of calorie tracking. All right. So it's a very complex thing. The other side of it, as well as the reference tables that we use, are quite often inaccurate. So some of the common apps that you might use on the phone, the database that we rely on there has either been generated by a user, or there's been an error, or portion size has been wrong, or for you to get your portion right when you're calorie tracking can be quite difficult. So there's a lot of issue. We quite often find that tracking calories through an app or a food diary that's analyzed can be about 20–25% out. So we need to take that into account. Accuracy in terms of food records is very, very hard. It can be a useful tool. You can pick up trends, and if you're consistent, it's all relative, which is great. But actually tracking and that number that it spits out isn't necessarily the calories that you're getting from your food. All right, so that's the first bit of it. Calories in, very difficult to actually measure and quite complex, but it's a tool for us as dietitians or nutrition professionals in terms of trying to portion and get things right and have a system to work with. It's still one of the most useful ways or tools that we've got. Okay, so before I move on to calories out, I just want to catch up on some questions if there's anything. Tracy's loving the scientific approach. Thank you. I'm trying to not go too deep into it. I get carried away sometimes. Nikki's late, but yeah. Are green local mangoes a fruit or veg? They will be fruits, maybe. All right, Nicole's checking in. Haven't seen any questions. What is good for quick energy balance if one doesn't eat properly? I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. Misha, if you just rephrase that for me. Okay, no questions. Everyone else just saying hi, which is good. If I've missed your question, just post it again. I'm catching things as they come in here. All right, so we've got a little understanding about energy in, some of the concerns about it, and how complex and difficult it is to actually measure what those calories are. So if you've been tracking, you're not getting your results, might just be the tool that you're using is the best one for your approach, but it all is all relative, so it's changing. If you're not getting results with what you're doing, you make small changes to what you're doing and see if you can enhance it. All right. Jennifer says, are all calories created equally? Yes. A calorie is simply a unit of energy, so it's physics. Every calorie is the same. It's all about, when you break it down, like I said in the beginning, the amount of energy you need to heat water, and that's the measure of it. So 1 calorie, wherever it comes from, and the sort of energy sense is exactly the same. Nutritionally and health-wise, it's not. So there's nuance around that. I'll get a little bit into that and how we burn energy, and how sort of that can affect energy balance in terms of where those calories come from and how it can affect the energy balance equation. Okay. Michael had a question about calculating calories, which I have not seen. Michael, just pop it again. I'm going to scroll back up quickly. How do we calculate calories required daily? Okay, cool. So that's going to come into this next little bit. So your calories in, one side of the equation, calories out, which the 4 components, I'm going to break down a little bit further now. The first one, resting metabolic rate. Okay, so if you wanted to work out your resting metabolic rates, the most accurate way is getting into a lab and doing some indirect calorimetry, measuring your gas exchange in your body. You can work out sort of what your calorie burn is. That's not very accessible to most of us. So we've got all sorts of equations that we can use. Unfortunately, equations will give us all sorts of different numbers. So again, it's not entirely accurate. But what contributes to our resting energy expenditure, the biggest one, the biggest contributor to your metabolic rate is your muscle mass. So the bigger you are, the more your body has to move, the bigger that energy expenditure is going to be. So muscle mass is always going to be the biggest contributor to your energy expenditure. And the bigger the person, the bigger your daily energy expenditure. It's also one of the things around aging. Quite often we say as you get older, your metabolism slows. It doesn't necessarily. It's if you're losing muscle mass, your metabolism will slow. If you get some good strength training, if you're fit and strong, if you're fitter and stronger older than you were younger, you might actually find if you still weigh about the same, that your metabolism is faster. So it's not a something that we all just destined for our metabolism to slow and things to go haywire, and most of that's controlled by your body's muscle mass. Okay. The other component, some of the other components there, are also your body's hormones. So they control many of your body functions and how quick different things are happening around the body, how you creating hormones or repairing or sending messages and signals and whatever, and all of that sort of stuff takes quite a lot of energy for it to happen. And your hormones are going to influence your resting metabolic rate. So amongst them are thyroid hormones, which you often hear about. Under and overactive thyroid can affect your metabolic rate, and there are a few others of them as well. But typically, that resting metabolic rate is going to make up the biggest component. All right. The thermic effect of food is an interesting one, which might be about 10 or 15% of your total daily energy needs. And why I want to chat about it is the makeup of your diet is going to affect how much energy your body burns. And quite often from a fat loss point of view, and in our one-on-one program, while we focus on getting your protein in, is it's got a much higher cost to digest. Right? There are other benefits to protein as well in terms of recovery and health and mitigating some risks of calorie restriction, but for your protein, about 20 to 30% of the actual energy you get from the food, your body burns by breaking it down. So it's quite costly for your body to break down protein, whereas fat and carbohydrates only about 5 to 15%. So they're much more effective as energy sources for your body to take on and store. And why it's always going low fat or low carb is going to be successful, because those are the the more efficient energy stores. So if you take them away and go heavier on the protein side, your body's working harder to break that down. All right. The type of carbohydrate will also affect it. If you've got a higher, better quality carbohydrate, your body's going to work harder to break it down, spend more energy doing that, so you extract a little bit less. So when we're looking for fat loss, more protein, better quality carbohydrates, not refined sugars, and not easily digestible fats, those sorts of things, if they're easier to store, your body doesn't have to break down or burn energy to break them down, it means that you don't create as big of a calorie deficit. On the other side of the equation, if you want to pick up weight, you might swap it around and get things that are easier to digest, quicker to store, more energy efficient. If you're a very thin cyclist, you just need to fuel and get things in, and you don't want a calorie deficit. You want as effective fueling as possible. It's obviously completely different. You want to be getting in things that the body can metabolize as easily as possible. Okay. The exercise component I'll get to last. I'm just going to talk firstly about the non-exercise activity. So the fidgeting, the walking, which for a lot of us contributes and can actually be the make or break to success. So people are getting their 10,000 steps a day, or people who move a lot, people who fidget a lot. Quite often weight loss for them is a lot easier because there's a demand on the body there to move and create or burn energy all the time. And that can also contribute quite a bit to how much your body burns through every day. So if you just sat at a desk all day, there's a big component there that your body's missing, trying to burn extra energy. If you find that your calorie numbers are good during training, but you sat down all day, try and move more, try and get up, get your 10,000 steps and move around, fidget, do things that keep on the go, so that your body's always burning a little bit of extra energy. And you might find that makes a significant difference. There's some cool studies that also show when we are in a calorie deficit, the body naturally doesn't want to do that. It wants to conserve energy. The body doesn't like being out of sort of balance. So when we're in a calorie deficit and trying to lose weight, it's not a choice we make, but the body does just want to move less. So unless you're forcing yourself to get the steps in and move around, you might not notice that your daily activity has actually dropped, and that's going to be counter to your weight loss goals. So don't just focus on the calorie number on your watch. Make sure your daily activity is also up there. Okay. The last one I'm going to talk about is how your exercise affects it. All right. And that's the one where you go out training and you put your fitness watch on and it measures your session and it gives you a calorie number at the end, which essentially is how hard you've had to work to move your body during that session. All right. This is varied. It's very complex. I could actually just do an entire GFA just on this one. But the energy needed for exercise, again, like resting metabolic rate, the biggest contributor is always going to be your body weight. All right. So bigger guys are going to do an hour session and they're going to burn 1,000 calories. That's normal. If you're only weighing 50 kilos, the chances are you're not going to burn, you might only be burning half of that. It's nothing against you and your effort. It's purely your body hasn't had to produce as much energy to move you because you are lighter and smaller. As you get fitter and more efficient in your movements as well, your body's going to burn less calories to get the same work done. So the calorie number on your watch isn't always a description of the quality or the effort that you put in. It can just be being heavier. The duration is always going to affect it as well. And the intensity of the exercise is going to affect it. So the higher your heart rate during that session, the higher your calorie number will be for you at the same session that you've done at a lower heart rate, which is fine. There's nothing really to worry about. I just use it kind of to relate one session to another. You know, if one, you've gone flat out and you've burned 350 calories, the next week you're doing a similar session and you've only done 270, you might think to yourself, I didn't go as hard today as I did last week. It's all relative. Don't compare it to someone else because someone else might be bigger, they might be smaller. Naturally, they might have a higher heart rate response than you do, and that's going to give them a different number. Everyone's watch uses a slightly different equation, and you're going to get a different result out of it. It's predictive, so your watch is purely, you've put in there what your weight and your height and your age are. That plus your average heart rate is going to predict what your calorie burn was. It's not an exact science, and if you use two different watches for exactly the same session, you might find that you get two very different numbers. Use them to relate to each other, not to someone else's. Okay, it's all about you and your session, how hard you've gone, and it's given you a bit of an idea of, right, that was about a 300 or 400 calorie, or it's been 1,000 up in for an hour's run or something like that. Your type of exercise is also going to impact it, because if you're doing a single movement or small body part, the body doesn't need to move as much. It's not going to burn as much energy. So even a gym-based or high-intensity home-based workout, you're going to burn less calories than you do when you're running, because when you're running, you've got to move your entire body to do that. And you know, compare that to maybe cycling, you're only moving your legs. Heart rate's the same, but you know, the amount of work that you've actually had to put in to propel your body is different. So there's all sorts of complexities that go in there. Don't get too tied up on it. Just try and use it to relate to yourself how hard you feel you're going. Okay, so a long way to get back to Michael's question of how do you know how many calories you need is, and this is what I've tried to build into the one-on-one program, is everyone, you know, we run them through a calculator and say, cool, based on your weight and height and the amount of exercise you're doing, how do we get you to the deficit that you need for whatever your fat loss goal is? Fat loss is your goal. But essentially, you need to combine the resting metabolic rate with your energy expended during the day to determine what your needs are. So your total daily energy expenditure is the amount you want to eat to stay the same. So if you eat as much as you're burning, that's maintenance. That's kind of keeping your body weight where it is. If you want to pick up weight, you're going to add 350, 500 calories to that. If you want to drop your weight, you drop it by 350 or 500 calories. So there's kind of a simple mathematical way of doing it. You can use an online calculator to do it. If you're on the one-on-one program, you can chat to your coach about it. We've got one in the background that we use with our clients, and that's what you can use to predict how much you should be burning. The other way to do it is just standing on the scale. So without measuring anything, every week, if your weight is moving down 400 or 500 grams, the amount that you're eating is obviously just slightly off of what you should be doing from a maintenance point of view. You can do it from trial and error to work out if I'm eating this amount, Am I getting results, and adjust it that way? Is the kind of only other way to do it without getting too sort of technical and assessing things from it. So that's sort of the best way to kind of look at how much should I eat, base it off an equation and working it out with a professional, or do it trial and error. It's going to take you a little bit longer to kind of work it all out, but that's why we give you the structure in the one-on-one program. We've done that hard work for you guys to say, right, well, based on your goals and where you want to achieve, this is, you know, the amount of food that we think you've got, and we've got various sort of approaches to get you to that number. Okay, so that's the sciencey technical stuff of it and how we sort of apply it into the day. I just want to scroll back and try to catch up on what you guys have said. Michelle, does it also mean our tracking devices is an estimate, not definite? 100%. It's not very accurate at all, to be honest. A colleague in the UK actually did a pretty cool thing on a treadmill, wearing about 4 different fitness devices across all the top brands and everything, and had it against essentially what would be a gold standard with what we call indirect calorimetry. So you might have seen like guys doing VO2 max tests, and you know, got the mask on, we're measuring gas exchange, and we can actually work out what your calorie burn is. So that's pretty accurate. All the things on the watch, pretty much most of them were out by 10, 15, some 25%. So they can be horribly off for all sorts of reasons. And it's just a downside to them. It's an estimate. It uses an equation, it predicts a value, it uses your heart rate again to kind of use it, and wrist-based heart rate off chest is also going to give you different numbers. So there's just so many variables that you can't take it as hard science, just use it as a guide. Okay, I think that's the best way to sort of approach it. Marlies loves a good calorie debate. Brilliant. Okay, so let me scroll down and see how we go. Natasha now understands why active calories are so low. Yeah. So ask yourself those questions. Think about it in terms of what you're doing every day. How much am I moving? Your structured exercise. So I'll give you a quick sort of example. If you 70 kg male and your resting metabolic rate's maybe about 1,800 calories, you're burning 300 calories in a session. So it's a very small percentage of your big number. You're most probably active and walking around and doing half of that anyway, but you think your exercise is the most important thing. It's super important because it's maybe enough to create that deficit. But if you aren't doing the 150 calories of just moving and walking around, which is 10-15% of what you need, you might not be getting the results that you need. You've got to be active. You've got to be doing the little extras. You can't just sit around and think your one session is enough. So it's just important to ask yourself that question. Should you be eating your workout calories back if you're on a calorie deficit eating plan already? So that should have been taken into account for your plan. So the exercise calories are there to create the deficits. What I quite often like doing from an extreme sort of calorie deficit point of view would be feeding. You should never eat less than your resting metabolic rate as a theme. So you should never eat less than what your body needs to kind of survive and do the basics. Then your activity will add a little bit more. Your exercise will add a little bit more. If that deficit starts getting bigger because you may be training an hour a day, you're doing 10, 12 hours a week, you start adding extra in. But the deficit you create from a 40-minute session and from just moving around should actually be enough. It's a nice sort of simple way to go about it. Okay. Lisa, hello. Top of the class. Always a concern seeing someone else's results. And that's not what it's about. Don't compare yourself, not just with the calorie side, but even the results that you're getting out of the program. So don't compare yourself to other people, because your results are completely dependent on your genetics, your physiology, your heart rate, your watch that you're using. There's so many things that aren't going to determine the success. It's more about you trusting the system, the program that you're on, being sustainable with it. If you're consistent, you can make small changes and get results, as opposed to think, it's not working for me, I need to try something else. Okay. Michelle already answered a question you might have had. Leslie feels better about her calories, always comparing to others. So don't. All right. So, and we often get that because someone who is a smaller frame is saying, why am I only burning 250 calories? Whereas someone else has posted their picture and it's 600, purely body size, heart rate, those things are going to determine the watch itself. So the other thing as well is worth checking with your watch. Your settings are right on there. You've got your weight, your age, your height. You haven't used someone else's who's obviously completely different. Your watch uses all of those to predict the number of calories that you've burnt. And if you're using a wrist-based heart rate monitor, make sure you've got the fit right. Quite often they need to be a little bit above the wrist bone. They might not fit very well. You might be losing signal throughout. If your watch thinks you were moving for 2 minutes, that's a couple extra calories that you missed. So it's all going to be in the pot. Okay. Katie, moving more. Will using a stand-up desk help a bit? Definitely. So standing, you're going to burn slightly more calories than sitting because you activate more muscles to do it. So standing as opposed to sitting is going to be more beneficial that way. And you might also find that you have to move more because you're standing. So your muscles might be a bit weaker, fidgeting a little bit more because you're already standing. You might take a few steps as opposed to just sitting here like a blob like I am at the moment, where your body doesn't have to do much. You've got all the support and everything you need to, so your calorie burn is going to be a little bit lower. Okay. Megan's reached her goals, and I'm still losing weight. Underactive thyroid. Started Jeff, my metabolism might be in a better place. Definitely. So one of the things I didn't touch on was that thermic effect of food, and I mentioned it last week. One of the reasons we use kind of your day and a half, your calorie surplus, a refeeding approach, or eating a better quality diet. If you've got a nice nutrient dense, it goes back to the old calories created equally. If you get 100 calories from pure sugar and you get 100 calories from a mixed meal of fat and protein and carbohydrates and various things, your body's working harder to break that down. But what we notice is that your daily energy expenditure increases off that. So your metabolism also increases. We often see in research done on jockeys, for example, how slow their metabolism is because they've been eating such a little amount, and your body sort of reacts to that. And it wants to conserve energy. It doesn't want to lose weight. So it tries to conserve energy in as many ways as possible. And because your resting energy expenditure is the biggest component of that, your hormones come into play and start to conserve energy, slow down bodily processes. When you change that and you start eating well, you start eating a good balanced diet, a nice nutrient dense diet, and the body's now getting nourished, it's getting fueled, your metabolism increases again. So there's some cool refeeding studies where you throw lots of calories at people for a few days. They don't put on weight because what you see is that the body all of a sudden starts burning a lot more as well. So it's not as simple as just, in and out. There are all sorts of things, levers that come into play that get pulled with that. Right. So eating a much better quality diet often gets better results because the body's just working a little bit better because of it. Right. I can't comment on your thyroid meds. I don't know much about your medical history, but it's worth always getting them checked out. So your whenever last you had your sort of thyroid profile done, and whether the meds that you're on are matching that, to discuss that with your endocrinologist. All right. Tracy, how accurate are the body measurement scales? Also not very accurate. So what they do is just send a little current through your body and measure hydration status, most of them. And from that, it estimates body fat levels. So you get better quality ones, but unfortunately, I wouldn't really rely on them too much. Again, you can use them relatively. So if you're in the same state of hydration every time that you do it, same time of day, and control for as many of the controllables that you can, you'll know that if it's moving down, it is fat that is moving down. But if you go and have a couple of glasses of water and stand on them again, you'll most probably find that it varies quite a bit, depending on the quality of the scale. But yeah, they all vary quite a bit. Okay, I want to get to the last few questions, if there are any, before I take up too much of your guys' time. Megan's been purposefully eating to see why she's still losing. Maybe calorie intake hasn't equaled output. 100%. That's exactly the trial and error of it. So if you've increased your intake and you're still losing weight, your body's not back at energy balance, so you're still burning more, you've got to just try and increase that intake until you get it to a point where that weight is consistent. And then you know how much I'm eating matches my needs. As simple as that. Okay. Yellow dot, well done. Katie's got a standing desk, but you've been sitting. There we go. Maybe we'll get you on it now. Nikki, is it true that more muscular you are, the higher your resting calorie burn is? Yes. So you might have missed that in the beginning. The biggest contributor to your metabolism, your metabolic rate, is your muscle mass. It's the active tissue. So your organs, your heart and your brain and kidneys and all of those things are burning energy. They don't vary much in size, but your muscle mass is the biggest contributor to your energy expenditure. So the more muscle mass you carry, the more energy the body's going to burn. Okay. Brilliant. I think that was the last question. Catherine, no wasted time at all. Fantastic. Christina loves this approach. It's sustainable and healthy. Megan could listen to this all day. Don't get me started. I might be here all day. Pedro, only a pleasure. Del, thanks for checking in. So, guys, I hope you've learned something. Okay, calories are useful mainly for us in terms of working out your balance and trying to plan things and get your nutrition right and your training right and track some aspects of exercise. That is super useful. For you guys, not always so much because of all the complexities and issues around the accuracy of them. So if you don't take them with a pinch or two of salt, you might get tied up in it and get sort of demotivated, where it's nothing about you. It's purely the tool that isn't providing you the accuracy that you need. All right. So energy balance is always going to determine whether you're picking up or losing weight. How you control that is down to your exercise, down to your daily activity, and obviously down to your nutrition as well. We haven't touched on other aspects that all influences things like stress and sleep and recovery, which I think one of our we've got lined up in other sessions anyway, but all of that's going to affect energy balance. So it's a complex equation. There's a lot going on there, but know that it all does boil down to that at the end of the day. So you can ask yourself questions. If you aren't getting to your goals, which lever are you maybe not pulling on? And you can maybe address that one to try and get a little bit better results. Okay. Lara, it's been an absolute pleasure. Alex answered some questions for you. Megan, going to go check it out with the endocrinologist. Perfect. Okay. I just wanted to see this. If not all 3 healthy meals eaten. So I don't remember the first question about if you're still training every day. Thyroid's also been all over the place for Marilyn and been pretty stable for the last year. So quite often we're not going to get it right unless it's medically controlled. So obviously that's through working with your physician or your endocrinologist to make sure that that's right. There are a couple of things that just make weight management difficult. If we don't get our hormones right, and if there are imbalances and deficiencies, we're seeing more and more iron deficiency as well, and that can be something that makes weight loss difficult because there's so many things that affect how the body works and how your energy system works. There are all sorts of things that you can ask about. Okay, so guys, my coffee's cold, but my mouth's dry. I've been talking too much nonsense for too long. Hopefully you got something great out of it. It's pointed you in the right direction. If you want a little bit more info about it all, or you're just not winning at it, chat to us about the one-on-one. We take a lot of that out of the way for you. We've got some things to work out, what you should be eating, how much it should be, how we can track your energy balance as accurately as possible within our means, and that's kind of going to get you there to the next level. Other than that, I've given you a few things to think about and some different things you can try, and maybe taking a bit of stress off that number at the end of every training session because it doesn't match someone else's. I'm glad that's at least giving you something as well. As always, it's been a pleasure. Next week, Monday, I've got another Jeff Ed, obviously our meal prep Monday. Wednesday night, I'll cook, and next Friday, another topic. If there's anything burning that you really want to see, you want me to chat about, you want to pop in and make sure that we're covering, please let me know. We're here for you guys. Okay. Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the rest of your lunch break. You've got a little bit of time left. Sun shining here in Cape Town. We've got some rain coming again, but hopefully you guys can all keep active. We've got a awesome, obviously our spring workout tomorrow. Get in there, 8 o'clock. It's going to be epic. Make sure you're collecting your dots. We're going to see who's at the top of the leaderboard at the end of every week. So get them, swipe in, keep active, be focused on what you're doing nutritionally, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great one. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.